What will be the top 10 moments of 2017?
It is incredibly noisy in the cockpit. Not only with the jet engines running, the shockwaves make it even louder. It is shattering in there.
In October 2017, the eyes of the world will be on the Kalahari Desert. At South Africa's Hakskeen Pan, the Bloodhound supersonic team will attempt to drive a car at the fastest speed on record, faster than the speed of sound.
There's the very intense heat. The car is too hot to touch, and I'm fighting the steering to try and keep it straight. Very high G, acceleration affects the body. Deploy the parachutes at the right speed so the car rolls to a stop at the end of the track, never beyond.
The target speed is 800 miles per hour. The driver, Andy Green.
Current world record was set at 763 miles an hour. And in 2017, that record will be 20 years old and will be broken by the Bloodhound supersonic car. We're going to push back the boundaries of physics. It's ambitious to the point of astonishing.
Andy's confidence is understandable. The current record holder, the only person in the world to have broken the sound barrier on land, is him.
I regard it as a tremendous privilege to have been part of the world record-breaking team back in 1997. Every single moment of that ride is clearly etched in my memory as being challenging, exciting, demanding. Every bit of this works for me as the mathematician, the fighter pilot and the record holder. I couldn't possibly stay away.
But it's not just the thrill or the glory that is motivating Andy to do it again.
Bloodhound is about much more than just setting a new world land speed record. It's about bringing science and technology to life in the most exciting way possible. It's a live streaming video and data vehicle, literally the fastest outside broadcast studio in history.
Andy's every move will be streamed live to a global audience, which is why his record attempt is set to be one of the unforgettable moments of 2017.
As long as people are still trying to break records, records will still be broken.
In 2017, a new type of medicine will be on all of our lips. It's called personalised medicine.
It's going to be a year when more of us are going to be hearing about these sort of personalised precision approaches in medicine, and it's going to start making an impact on us. We'll see it in the newspapers, maybe we'll know someone who's had a personalised treatment.
Personalised medicine customises treatment to an individual's needs, using their genes. It's powerful, precise, and effective.
You're seeing lots of companies trying to match genes of tumours with actual drugs, and we'll see the development of liquid biopsies, that's blood samples being taken, and using that to identify what's happening in your tumour.
And there's one breakthrough in particular that will get our attention. A new drug that marks a step change in our battle against cancer.
2017 will be important historically because of the approval of a gene therapy treatment called CAR-T therapy. Kite Pharmaceuticals is producing a therapy for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's really clever. You take out your T cells, your immune cells, you genetically modify them so they'll target cancer, you put the T cells back in, and then they hunt down the cancer and eliminate it. That is a very effective way of dealing with certain types of blood cancers. For those patients who have it, that's going to give them an option to extend their life, possibly quite significantly, and that's going to be huge. But for the rest of us, it will change the way we look at cancer. It will make us think that it's something that we can essentially target in a very, very precise way.
And it's not just cancer. We may come to see these advances in 2017 as part of a sea change in our entire approach to medicine.
Looking further into the future, we should imagine that all medicine will be much more personalised, will be much more precision, whether it's in cardiology, neurology, oncology, all the ologies. What that promises is better treatments, more effective treatments, fewer side effects, longer life.
2017, the world will watch as Russia commemorates a turning point in its history. 100 years since the Russian Revolution. Revolutionaries overthrew Russia's ruling dynasty and, led by Vladimir Lenin, replaced it with the world's first communist state.
It's quite hard to find a city in Russia where we don't have Lenin's huge statue in the main square. So these Lenins are everywhere.
It will be an awkward anniversary for Vladimir Putin. He'll have to square Russia's historical worship of Lenin with his regime's aversion to any dissent.
I think that next year all the discourse about the revolution will be that everything which was made for building another world was totally wrong and we should live in this conservative heaven forever, which is, of course, bullshit.
Think that you can't criticize your government! These men think that
For
if you see
Putin, every particular thing which reminds him mass protests is not comfortable for him. They don't like the word revolution, they don't like the word protest.
Maria Alyokina knows better than most how the Russian authorities react to protest. Her band, Pussy Riot, performed an anti-Putin song in Moscow's main cathedral, after which he spent almost 2 years in a Russian prison.
Putin and his team, they are doing some preparation for the next year. Putin created a new police structure in April. The main goal of this is to control the protests. They present people who are against them as a terrorist, as something really dangerous for the safety of people, which is totally wrong.
For Maria, next year's anniversary is more than a reminder of Russia's revolutionary past. It's a time to reflect on what revolution means today.
A lot of people, because of huge history of the revolution, are waiting for some leader who will just do this revolution, Lenin or somebody. For my opinion, revolution starts inside every person who decides not to be indifferent. It's work of each of us. It's a challenge of society and for society.
In 2017, an audacious piece of performance art will capture the zeitgeist by invoking one of the world's oldest and most enduring symbols. The Parthenon from ancient Greece marks the ideals of the world's first democracy. In 2017, Argentine artist Marta Minujin is going to rebuild it out of 100,000 forbidden books. In Germany,
Books from all over the world, they will be here in the Parthenon.
For Minujin, her ambitious replica will be a symbol of resistance to political repression. Today, crowds gather to see her mark the outline of the huge structure with rope and pegs.
This emotional moment of groundbreaking, this square has so many important memories.
Banned books have a history here at Friedrichsplatz in Kassel. In 1933, some 2,000 books were burnt by Nazi sympathizers.
Books are the vehicle of culture. The people learn to think through books. People can select what they want to read, and some people forbid what the other wants to read.
Minujin was inspired to build her first Parthenon in Argentina over 30 years ago, shortly after the collapse of the country's dictatorship.
Many people in Argentina, they didn't even know what the word democracy was because the militaries were there killing everybody and making terrible things. Many books were burned. So all those books that were forbidden, they were given to me and I created the Parthenon. So it's very important to do that monument to democracy with forbidden books.
At the Documenta Arts Festival in Kassel, the new replica will be regularly lifted to give the public access.
The Parthenon is going to move maybe 2 or 3 times a day. You can walk on the Parthenon and also you can take the forbidden books. So by the end we will have no books.
For Minujin, her Parthenon's message about the importance of free speech and democracy is relevant to Europe in 2017.
I think that Europe is not in a good moment now. The continent here, many things forbidden. It's in trouble, also with the problem of migrants. I am glad to share with you this moment when the peace seems to dilute and democracies are trembling. I believe the way of solve that is through art. It will open minds. So this Parthenon made out of books from all over the world is a show how diversity is welcome to our future.
In late 2017, the world will await the results of a radical and controversial operation. Italian neurosurgeon Dr. Sergio Canavero, seen by many as a maverick, is set to attempt the world's first human head transplant.
A body transplant or a head transplant is a true first in medical care. Whether it can be performed successfully remains to be seen.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Oh, Valerie, hi.
But the surgeon has found a participant willing to take the risk.
A Russian man with a chronic and progressive neuromuscular problem has been considered to be the likely candidate for the recipient of the body transplant.
Valery Spiridonov is wheelchair-bound and his degenerative disease is terminal.
90% is the chance that Valerie stands to survive the operation.
150 doctors and nurses would be involved in an operation that could take up to 36 hours to complete.
The proposition involves maintaining the blood supply around the donor body, but also critically maintaining the blood supply to the recipient's head so that the recipient does not suffer a terrible stroke or brain death. To maximise the length of time that the blood supply can be interrupted, the recipient and the donor body will both be cooled to significantly subnormal temperatures to around 17 degrees or so. Once everything is cooled, then the donor body will be slowly dissected from the donor head, and at the same time the recipient head will be freed of its minimally or non-functioning old body. Critically, it involves cutting the spinal cord and grafting the donor spinal cord in the donor body onto the recipient's spinal cord and brain.
Doctors will have less than 60 minutes to reattach the head.
The spinal cord is to be glued together, followed by some hardware to screw the spinal column together, and then the muscles will be reattached. The patient will be kept in a coma for 6 weeks, presumably to allow the spinal cord to heal or knit together.
The procedure, which seems the stuff of science fiction, has been met with concern and scepticism by the medical establishment.
In theory, every step of it can be done, and there are some steps of it that are done routinely, but a spinal cord has never successfully been reattached before. Once the spinal cord is cut and repaired, it will not function, and we know that from extensive scientific studies and medical studies. There is an inevitability that the recipient will wake up unable to move the arms, legs, or any of the organs of the grafted body. So they will be unable to breathe and would subsequently die.
And there are other questions about the ethics of the operation.
There is a concern about the use of a donor body, which would normally be used for harvesting organs, being used on a project where there is very little medical or scientific evidence to support its use.
Dr. Canavero believes the transplant could be the key to everlasting life. His controversial plans will be watched with fascination by professionals and public alike in 2017.
This is going to be a big talking point because it captures the public imagination, and it is a fascinating medical procedure to devise and to contemplate. Will it be a medical success? No. But I'm happy to be proved wrong.
In 2017, we're likely to see a lot of drone deliveries globally, or at least a lot of testing. We're going to see them in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, United States, the UK, and all over Africa. That's just the beginning.
It's been a dream of futurists for years, but 2017 will see the automated delivery race pick up the pace.
One reason is for faster deliveries. We're living in a very on-demand world. I need a new shirt and I want it now, so I want it within minutes. That's the Amazon idea.
In December 2016, retail giant Amazon released this documentary-style promotional video. It makes clear the technology is already here for their drone to deliver a package from depot to customer in 13 minutes.
Amazon in particular have this idea of the Amazon mat, and what happens is when you order, you leave the mat out in your doorstep or in your garden, and it will detect that and come down to land. Obviously the navigation will all be done by GPS.
Amazon isn't the only tech giant with its eyes on the skies.
Google in the United States and Virginia are delivering burritos and possibly 7-Eleven items. There's also Canadian drone deliveries. In Rwanda, they're delivering blood.
But there are some big obstacles to overcome before pilot programs give way to a mass rollout.
There are very tight regulations around the world about flying drones. Civil aviation authorities have had to relax laws to enable drones to fly, but they haven't relaxed them enough yet. At the moment, the laws around the world are that one person must always remain in line of sight of the drone, and that means that someone has to be seeing the drone all the time when they're flying it. And of course, if you're going to do deliveries, that would be uneconomical, and that law will have to be relaxed.
And there are other concerns which obscure the path to widespread drone delivery.
When you think about it, where are they all going to go? They're going to need flight path control. What Amazon are talking about is having a 100-foot highway, a skyway, at about 400 feet, just beneath helicopter level. I think these deliveries are going to really change what our cities look like.
With aerial deliveries still getting airborne, robot pavement deliveries are likely to edge ahead next year.
It'll be interesting to see how the deliveries on the ground work out. In some ways that's a bit easier, and Domino's Pizza are rolling them out in the Netherlands next year for delivering pizzas. And Starship Technologies, which is an Estonian company, are in London, and they've got 2 food companies that they're working with, and they reckon there'll be a lot of late night booze deliveries. But will people attack these? Will they jump on them? Will they kick them? How are they going to protect themselves?
Ground or air, robot deliveries are unlikely to be an industry game changer just yet, but the advances in 2017 will be sure to hit the headlines.
We really are on the cusp of a robotics revolution. People have been talking about robots coming into our society for some time, and we hardly ever see them yet, but this will be a very significant step. We're going to really see them now.
It only happens once every 5 years. It's the biggest event in China's political calendar, and it determines who will rule the world's rising superpower for the next 5 years. The Communist Party's 19th National Congress takes place in October 2017, and it's set to be the backdrop for China's President Xi Jinping to take on ever more power.
He is already perhaps the most powerful Chinese leader since Mao, and this Congress is likely to enhance that trend and see him emerge even more powerful. We'll set the Politburo, which is the 25-man group which runs the country, and within that the 7-man standing committee, who are the most important people in the country who run it.
The Congress is normally an orderly changing of the guard, but this time the transformation will be sweeping.
This one is particularly significant because so many of the old leadership are scheduled for retirement. Of that top 7-member standing committee, which is the most important body in the country, 5 are due to retire. Only the country's leader, Xi Jinping, and the Prime Minister are likely to stay on. So it gives a chance to rule with his own people at his side, chosen by him.
And this will signal if Mr. Xi intends to stay in power beyond the 10 years now standard for Chinese leaders.
They've all retired after 2 terms. He may well, some people think, have an eye to staying on beyond 2022, well into his 70s as the country's leader. The optimistic interpretation is that he is accumulating power because he wants to reform the economy, he wants to pursue radical reform, and there are vested interests in his way that he needs to get rid of. The pessimistic interpretation is that he's accumulating power because he likes it.
Either way, it's likely to trigger a major bout of political infighting behind the scenes at the Congress. That spells uncertainty, at a time when China's relationship with America is in question.
China should love us. But you know what? They're making a fortune off us. They're taking our jobs, our money, everything.
If America really does pursue the protectionist course that Donald Trump is threatening, it would be disastrous for the Chinese economy, disastrous for relations between the two countries. And yes, China must be extremely concerned about that.
And the fallout from that could be felt the world over.
Xi Jinping has embarked on a course of challenging American strategic superiority in the Western Pacific around China's own borders. That matters in a world where he will be confronting an America led by President Trump, whose intentions towards China are not clear. So the risk of confrontation is quite high.
On the 7th of May, the political world will brace itself for its next major potential shock as votes are counted in the French presidential election.
The French presidential elections in 2017 will be one of the big moments in modern European politics. We're likely to see a very vigorous debate over populism in Europe.
The French have a two-round system. The two candidates with the most support enter a second head-to-head vote to decide the presidency. One candidate almost certain to make it into this runoff is Marine Le Pen, leader of far-right party, the National Front.
Marine Le Pen has connected with sections of society that feel economically left behind, but also culturally under threat. She's been talking a lot about ditching the euro, citing Brexit as an example of where perhaps France should go.
Nous élisons en réalité des pantins.
She's likely to see some of that translate into a strong result next year.
Polls show Le Pen should be beaten in the runoff, most likely by centre-right Republican candidate François Fillon. But after Donald Trump's surprise victory in America, there's a sense that anything is possible.
Le vote massif des Britanniques en faveur du Brexit, bien sûr, et maintenant l'élection de Donald Trump, ce sont autant de choix démocratiques qui enterrent l'ordre ancien.
It'll be a campaign played out against the backdrop of terror. The stakes couldn't be higher for France.
The presidential election is going to shine a light on what is now quite a divided society that's asking some fundamental questions about things like immigration, integration, whether or not Islam can be reconciled with Western European society. The volume is about to be turned up quite sharply.
But the stakes are even higher for the future of Europe itself.
Marine Le Pen is a symptom of a much deeper conflict that is taking place under the surface of European society. The French presidential election is going to revive questions like, can the EU survive? Can the EU actually respond to concerns that are not just about economics but are about identity? And can Europe move forward in a unified, liberal and progressive way?
The populist right across Europe looks set to continue its rise in the coming year.
2017 is going to see some big elections, quite successful populist anti-immigration parties like the Freedom Party in the Netherlands and the Alternative for Germany really beginning to assert themselves. We've always looked to France to get a sense of how strong the populist right is in Europe, and that's the big question. Are we now about to see these parties enter the corridors of power?
The appearance of this outfit convulsed world politics for several years, struck fear into the hearts of people all around the world.
Islamic State is the most vicious and murderous jihadist regime the world has ever seen. In 2017, it will be smashed.
The defeat of Islamic State will be one of the most significant things to happen in 2017. This was the biggest, boldest attempt by jihadism to set up an alternative form of government, to defy not just the West, to defy the whole world order, to defy lines on maps, to create a completely religious-based and extremely violent government.
Tonight I want to speak to you about what the United States will do with our friends and allies to degrade and ultimately destroy the terrorist group known as ISIL.
Forces from some 60 countries have taken the fight to Islamic State. It now clings to two key strongholds, one in Iraq and one in Syria.
Islamic State has been driven out of almost all the territory they used to hold in Iraq. At one point they had a third of the country. They are down just to holding a part of Mosul. In Syria, they have been driven out of almost everything they held, and attention will shift to Raqqa, the Islamic State capital in Syria, quite swiftly after that.
Controlling territory is what defines Islamic State. Recruits have been drawn from all over the world to fight for its declared domain.
The objectives were to remain and expand, and to remain really is the important thing here, to be more than just a terrorist outfit, to be an alternative government. If that goes, then a whole way of looking at the world goes with it.
In October 2016, an Iraqi-led force launched a concerted effort to reclaim Mosul.
That's meeting some stiff resistance as it gets closer into the city itself, but they are one by one taking out Islamic State leaders.
The city is set to fall within months, with the Syrian stronghold of Raqqa and a few remaining pockets likely to follow shortly after. But many of the fighters themselves may outlast Islamic State.
The terrible danger is that in 2017, the people that fought with Islamic State will feel just as discontented as ever they did, and will return not to holding territory, but to committing acts of horrible violence against the people that are trying to rebuild the country.
For the West too, it may prove a Pyrrhic victory.
The dangers that we saw coming to cause great bloodshed in 2016 on the streets of Europe will be even greater in 2017, because there is no Islamic State existing as a state for people to go and fight for, so they may go and fight elsewhere. The fall of Islamic State will not mean the end of terrorism. It won't mean that peace will come, that atrocities will cease, that jihadism as an idea will be defeated. However, something very significant will have happened, I think. A philosophy, a psychology that says that you can create a wholly new geographical entity, call it a state, transcend the existing established order of borders. That idea will have been smashed. To see that disappear, that's really fantastic news.
We will win.
He cannot be my president.
We will shock the world.
He cannot be our president.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. The change you've been waiting for will finally arrive.
Mr. Trump was the insurgent populist candidate. He is a man who has no experience in politics, but a man who is clearly determined to change things dramatically.
On January 20th, 2017, the eyes of the world will be on Donald Trump, the property developer turned TV host, as he takes the oath of office and is sworn in as America's 45th president.
What the man is like when he moves into the Oval Office, what decisions he makes, how he governs, these are the big questions for 2017.
President Trump will have a unified Republican Congress to work with.
The fact that the Republicans control Congress means that, of course, that it is much easier for President Trump to enact policies that he wants. America's system gives him an enormous amount of leeway to do things by himself.
From Inauguration Day onwards, President Trump will be in a position to deliver profound and lasting change.
To try and understand what Mr. Trump will do, it helps to think about what kind of a person we saw on the campaign trail.
A phrase coined by analysts is that there is a dark Donald and a Trump light.
Dark Donald is the man who wants to expel illegal immigrants, the man who is concerned about Muslims coming to America, the man who wants to raise tariffs, the protectionist.
There will be a major tax reduction.
Trump light is essentially an economic supply-sider like Ronald Reagan, a man who wants to cut taxes, slash regulation, and who wants to increase spending. I think we will see that. The question is, how much of the darker side of Mr. Trump do we see too?
We're going to build a wall. We're going to build the wall.
He's a real estate developer. He likes building things, whether it's a fence or whether it's a huge wall across the entire border. I suspect more the former than the latter.
Russia, like us, has nuclear weapons, folks. It would be really nice if we got along with Russia.
I would expect him to have a warmer relationship with Mr. Putin and to try and sit down and do some big deals. But many of the people around him are quite skeptical about Russia and its intentions. Just how much there is a bromance and these two men remaking the world order together is not yet clear. My greatest hope is that Donald Trump is not the president that we saw on the campaign trail, but rather a man who is determined to change Washington, but recognizes the importance of an open world system. My greatest fear is that Mr. Trump ends up being the divisive, angry figure. I think that that kind of Mr. Trump could prove extremely dangerous.
After President Trump's inauguration, the political tremors will reverberate across America and around the world in 2017.
It's rare that we've started the year in which a new American president takes office that we ask, is the future of the liberal world order at risk? And this time, it really is.